Okay, good afternoon everyone. I want to give you a brief introduction to one of the modules that is undertaken as part of the IDC. It's known as the Study Tour. I am the unit director for that, and I wanted to run through partially to make sure that all the students are aware of what the module is and why we do it, but also to sort of appeal to our industrial partners so they can understand what we're doing, why we're doing it, and hopefully lend their support to what I think is a really important part of the IDC taught component experience. A few bits about me. I kind of like to consider myself a project manager with an H-index. An H-index is an academic ranking automatically created from citations. It's not a very high one, but I do have one, and I do try and keep half a toe in the academic field in my particular domain of design information and knowledge management in engineering. My day job is largely as the NCC project manager. I manage the relationship between the university and the NCC, and I interact with some of the, particularly the EngD students based at the NCC or sponsored by the NCC. I'm based in the Industrial Liaison Office at the University of Bristol, where we manage our strategic relationships with our industrial partners. I have a background in manufacturing, a PhD in engineering informatics and knowledge management, which was an Airbus Case Award, plus some time as a postdoc, including co-supervising PhDs. So what is the Study Tour module about? It's essentially a mini case study format, which is modelled loosely on a typical MBA sort of business school type case study. And what it's designed to do is build on the business skills unit, which form another part of the taught element, which are currently undertaken at the University of Bath. And there's two elements of the assessment. It's a short proposal, which I'll run through in a minute, and it's really the bulk of the assessment is around the assessment of a short case study, which is writing up the results of what the people are interested in. Why do it? It's really first and foremost about putting into practice the learning from the business skills modules. A lot of this stuff, it makes absolutely no sense until you try and go and do it yourself. And it's really about applying that classroom-based learning. Often what we're finding is it doesn't have to, but it can complement and align with what you're doing in the thesis anyway. It may form part of it, a very interesting chapter in the thesis. Having said that, it may be completely unconnected to what the student wishes to do in their thesis and just provides a nice sort of extra diversion. And I think this is one of the most important points for me is when I first became involved in the IDC course through becoming the unit director for this module, I got a very strong impression that what the IDC is trying to do is create these future leaders in composites, highly trained, highly skilled people, and I think part of that is enhanced by having an appreciation of the broader issues around business issues, supply chain issues, technology integration issues, all the kind of things that they learn as part of the business skills courses. I think it's really important for me that people have a broad and rounded taught component, and hopefully this forms part of that. What we ask students to do is come up with a short format proposal. This is sort of 1 to 2 pages, and it really just allows us to look at whether it's pitched appropriately for the number of credits the unit is, etc. And it encompasses a problem statement and some additional context, aims, objectives or hypotheses as appropriate, the methods that you may use to undertake the study and fulfil the aims and objectives, a consideration of ethics and confidentiality, which is obviously important to our industrial partners and always needs to be thought about in advance. And also ask them to think about supervision. I think this is particularly important when you're looking at business skills which may be outside the area of expertise of either the industrial or the academic supervisor. And part of my role is to try and match people up with the most appropriate additional supervision or input, which could be from within the faculty, outside the faculty, potentially even outside the university. The other important aspect of the proposal is that I actually ask for a plan A and a plan B. We're dealing with topics that it may be a lot harder than you initially think to collect data for. The data you think you might be collecting could change quite rapidly. You may not be able to do what you want with it. You may run up against confidentiality or engagement concerns from the who you're doing this with. And so I think it's always good practice, and it certainly happens in other, for example, MBA courses, that you also submit a brief plan B. That could be related, but same company, different topic. could be completely unrelated to the Plan A. I just want to talk slightly more about one of those things, which is the importance of thinking about the methods for the business skills module. The type of topics that you undertake that are undertaken on the business skills module, looking at things like technology, strategy, supply chain issues, sustainability, they often require quite different methods to a lot of the methods you've seen employed this morning, which are very scientific, deterministic in their nature. But you still need rigorous, valid methods for what some people, although I hate the term, call softer topics like these. And it's a really interesting opportunity for people to explore the relationship between methodology, methods, tools and techniques, in quite an interesting domain they might not have otherwise come across. And it could be involving methods outside of people's comfort zones in this module. So, for example, thinking about how to conduct a good interview. Sounds very simple. It's actually quite hard to do in practice, and you can draw on a lot of good practice out there about how to design interviews and questionnaires properly. Documentary analysis. This may form all or part of a particular module. So this is thinking about issues around coding schemes, the difference between top-down and bottom-up approaches to coding, interviews, or to look at documentary analysis of papers. You may also be employing analytical techniques from or computational techniques from completely different fields to, for example, look at analysing large sets of large corpuses of documents automatically. So there's quite a lot to think about in that. I want to particularly emphasise the methods because I think it's such an important part of the study tour and one that departs from what people might normally be undertaking during their day-to-day jobs. Just to give people a flavour as well of the type of topics that have been tackled, here are the titles from the first 4 of the study tours, which are either completed or in progress at the moment. So we have topics as diverse as knowledge-based approaches to lowering barriers to technology uptake, SME technology strategies, the post-merger integration of technology strategies and how that's affected by people and how they communicate with each other, and end of life for vehicles with a carbon fibre body in white. So a really diverse range of topics. I'm not giving these as examples which people may want to copy. Completely up to you. Do something that interests you, do something related to your thesis or not, as it takes your fancy. If you have a really burning interest in something, there's probably a way of looking at it from a business perspective in this module. I also really want to highlight the value of secondments and placements and visits as part of this process. So a number of people, a number of the research engineers have undertaken secondments, for example, to GKN. For example, Laura Pickard's visit to Canada earlier in the year, or as Fionn mentioned, to the University of Delaware to support her undertaking some of the analysis as part of that. And I think that's a really important part of it. It could also be a rich source of information for the case study itself. And I've really encouraged people to think about how they can make the most out of the taught element and how they can think about the case study in relation to any secondments or visits or that they might undertake during their time. That's all I really wanted to say about that. I'm conscious that I'm standing between you and lunch, but I'm happy to take any further questions on the study tour module, or come and find me. I'll be hanging around over lunch.